This is Southwest Florida in focus. Coming up, the return of blue-green algae in local waterways. How a bloom has manifested despite weather conditions being less than ideal for the toxic bacteria. A medical path now cleared for women seeking different treatment options while going through menopause. And a history lesson on the emergence of Fort Myers as we learn how the city was forged during the Civil War. Hello, I'm Jennifer Crawford. From skin rashes to breathing problems in humans to seizures and sudden death in dogs, blue-green algae poses a threat to those who come in contact with it. Blue-green algae is a type of toxic bacteria normally found in warm, stagnant water. We usually see it in Southwest Florida in the summer months. However, this year is very different. Take a look at these images from Hendry County taken this week. You can already see areas of blue-green algae along the Caloosahatchee River. Scientists say it's blooming despite our colder than usual temperatures and a lengthy drought. WGCU's senior environmental reporter Tom Bayles investigates how this batch of blue-green algae is defying the seasonal conditions.
Nearly half the length of the northernmost Caloosahatchee River is tainted with blue-green algae, most likely fueled by nutrient pollution like nitrogen and phosphorus in the heavily agricultural region near LaBelle and Moorhaven. Wilton Simpson, Florida's agriculture commissioner, this week suspended inspections that check on how well farmers are complying with best management practices. A list of environmental safeguards, such as keeping nitrogen and phosphorus in fertilizers out of nearby waters. In his emergency order, Simpson said Florida farmers have enough to handle right now, dealing with the wildfire threat, exacerbated by the current drought and recent freezing temperatures.
I don't understand how cold and dry make on-site verification of best management practices like impractical or impossible.
That's Joe Cavanaugh, director of Calusa Waterkeeper. He says the blue-green algae outbreak in the dead of winter shows the northeastern part of the river, surrounded mostly by farms and ranches, is already saturated with nitrogen and phosphorus. Cavanaugh said Simpson's decision will make things worse.
So it basically will impact the amount of nutrient-laden water that will get into the system from the agricultural industry, and then that will lead to more nutrient loading in the river.
The toxic algae normally blooms in stagnant water during summer months. Matt DePolis, an environmental manager with the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation, says warm and cold water is relative in Florida. Thus, the upper Caloosahatchee is apparently still warm enough to bloom despite the recent cold weather. And the year-long drought has quieted the normally robust flow of the river, providing the stagnant water warmed by the sun, a prime mix for blue-green algae.
We are now joined by WGCU senior environmental reporter Tom Bayles. Tom, this algae bloom is ahead of schedule. It is occurring during the winter months. How unusual is this?
It's very rare. It's not unprecedented, but it is rare. Blue-green algae likes warm water, stagnant water, the kind of stuff you get in the summertime. It's a late summer, early fall phenomena. The fact that it's happening and in 30, 40 miles of the river is coated with blue-green algae is very exceptional.
What has triggered this? Do you know?
Well, the scientists are still working on it, but at the base of every blue-green algae outbreak is nitrogen and phosphorus and the other types of food for any kind of algae outbreak. This area of the river is both sides are agriculture and ranching, so you're going to have a lot of the fertilizer runoff going into the river at this point, and that may be why it's in the easternmost part of the river, because that's of course not the case in downtown Fort Myers as the river goes through there.
You mentioned it's about a 36-mile stretch of the river, and it's Hendry County.
Yes.
Is there concern that this is going to travel west into Lee County toward the Gulf?
I was speaking with Matt DePolis from the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation, and he's an environmental expert in this stuff, and he doesn't believe it is an organized enough amount of blue-green algae to survive the other 40 or 50 miles down the river And even if it did, it wouldn't be a repeat of the horrible 2018, 2019 outbreak that everybody remembers, because that one collided with a red tide in the Gulf. And that's what became that big boom that was that year and a half long harmful algae bloom. So it's the confidence is low that it's going to go anywhere, and if it does, it'll probably fall apart.
Still something that we should be watchful and very concerned about, especially with regard to humans coming in contact with it, and more importantly, dogs,
Yes.
because a lot of us have those beautiful dogs, and it can be deadly if
Yes.
dogs come into contact in the water with this poisonous toxic
right.
bacteria.
Dogs do what they do, and they jump in the water and they play,
Yes.
and they tend to drink whatever water's around. The rule is to, if your dog gets into a blue-green algae water, is to immediately wash him or her with fresh water and get him to the vet, because dogs can die within hours.
That's what I was reading, and it's very alarming, very concerning. Is there any other information you would like us to know about if a human comes in contact with this?
Yes, if you come in contact with it, it's not gonna like do what it does to dogs, but you need to wash immediately with soap and water. You need to make sure that if you are in any doubt, you go without. You don't go in that water. Go find somewhere else to swim or hang out for the day.
Thank you so much, Tom, for joining us. For more on our continuing coverage of the water quality in Southwest Florida, you can head to WGCU.org. Coming up, the FDA lifts a 2-decade-long stance against menopausal hormone therapy, creating a new treatment path for anyone going through menopause. Florida's legislative session has just wrapped up its 6th week, but lawmakers in the State House and Senate still have a long way to go when it comes to hammering out a budget for the coming fiscal year. Discussions regarding legislation that could also impact what low-wage workers in Florida are paid, as well as those in need of unemployment benefits. For a look at what is happening in Tallahassee, we are now joined by WGCU reporter and host John Davis. John, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome. Can you please tell us what is going on in Tallahassee with regard to jobless benefits?
So there is a bill that did pass the House this week, and there was a Senate companion that has gone through the committee process. It's also now just awaiting a floor vote on that chamber. Essentially, what this would do is kind of make it a little bit harder for people who are claiming unemployment benefits to continue to get that benefit. So the changes it would make is you would have to contact at least 5 prospective employers each week. If you fail to appear for 3 or more job interviews without contacting that prospective employer to reschedule, that's something that could get you kicked off. And also, some people are just laid off, and if their old boss calls them back and says, hey, your job's here for you again, and they don't take that, they're not going to be able to get these benefits any longer.
I also saw there is legislation advancing that allows some workers in Florida to be paid less than what the mandated minimum wage is. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so there's Republicans in both chambers of the legislature pushing for this bill. This is not a broad thing. This would apply to a very specific class of workers. So think internships, any kind of structured work-based learning situation, training programs, pre-apprenticeships. And in order to earn less than minimum wage, the person would have to voluntarily opt into that. They would have to sign a waiver, and they would still have to be paid at least the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. And there'd also be time limits on this. So something like 252 days that you could get paid this lower wage for an adult. So about 9 months, and then a much shorter time period when we're talking about people under 18.
Okay, and we discussed there's a lot of different proposals that are moving through the House and the Senate, but our lawmakers are mandated constitutionally to really do one thing, and that is to pass a balanced budget.
It's the only thing they're required.
That's the one thing. What is the status of this?
The House and the Senate are still pretty far apart. The House and Senate budget proposals are about $1.5 billion different. The House proposal is about $1.5 billion less than the Senate's. And they also make different priorities. Like the House plans to back this proposal that Governor DeSantis had included in his pre-session budget priorities that would transfer the University of South Florida Sarasota Manatee campus to neighboring New College of Florida in Sarasota. The Senate's plan doesn't mention this at all. There hasn't even been a bill filed in the Senate to do that. Conversely, the Senate wants to keep funding Florida's state guard. The House has no plan to do that. And the House and Senate also have very differing ideas when it comes to the Emergency Preparedness and Response Fund. This is a fund that can be tapped into when the governor declares a state of emergency. And there's been issues with that as well, because there are some lawmakers who want to put restrictions on this, saying, this should really be used for preparedness and response for emergencies like hurricanes. And to be fair, the bulk of that money does go towards that. But now there are also lawmakers saying money from that fund has improperly gone towards building immigrant facilities like Alligator Alcatraz and Deportation Depot up in the Jacksonville area. And so they want to stop the governor from being able to spend that money on such things.
We look forward to hearing more from you on the very latest.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, John Davis, WGCU host and amazing political reporter. For more on our continuing coverage of the 2026 Florida legislative session, you can head to WGCU.org. For over 20 years, the Food and Drug Administration implemented a black box warning on menopausal hormone therapy. However, recent studies found that for many women, especially those under 60, the benefits outweigh the risks. Now the FDA has removed the warning. And as WGCU's Kate Cronin reports, the change opens a new world of treatment options for women going through menopause.
As women go through the transitional phase of perimenopause into menopause, their bodies stop producing estrogen.
About a year and a half ago, I found out that my hormones went from normal to zero, according to blood work, seemingly overnight.
Jennifer White owns Fort Myers Brewing. She is one of a growing number of women who are now using menopausal hormone therapy.
Now I know that I had been experiencing symptoms for probably a decade, and I wanted to have the conversation because I want to help normalize talking about the symptoms of perimenopause, of menopause, and really encourage people to have the conversation.
Here's how it works. Menopausal hormone therapy keeps levels balanced and your body in tune. And here's why it's being used more. The treatment was given what's called a black box label in the early 2000s. A now debunked study connected it to breast cancer for years, so some women did not consider hormone therapy an option because of the risk associated with that warning. Now, women like Jennifer are talking about treatment options.
I plan on being on hormone replacement therapy for the rest of my life. I can't imagine ever going back to that estrogen depletion, that mental health that I was in the moment.
Everyone has heard about hot flashes as a symptom of menopause, but there are actually more than 100 symptoms, including depression, anxiety, insomnia, and brain fog. Those can be life-altering and go on for years. Dr. Cherie Morris is Lee Health's Vice President of Women's Services.
You don't have to wait until things get really bad, and you don't have to think that there's not going to be anything for you, because there's a lot of options for women now. And as soon as you feel like you have symptoms that are disruptive to your life, then that's the time to have the conversation. Don't wait until it gets to the point where it's not bearable, because we don't have to do that anymore.
Misinformation around menopause is common, despite being a condition that affects half the population. Removing controversial black box warnings on menopausal hormone therapy could make it more accessible.
I hope that this is just the start of change, and that we start to recognize that we need to treat women not just when they're having babies, but as we continue to live and thrive. We're 50% of society.
The Society for Women's Health Research says that in the U.S. alone, more than 6,000 women begin menopause every day. Dr. Morris says there's a growing awareness among healthcare professionals when it comes to menopausal care, and encourages women to advocate for themselves in the doctor's office.
Keep an open mind about what is available and what, if you're a candidate or not for hormone therapy, because I think women tend to want to put themselves last. They have so much going on. They read a lot of different things in the media. They hear a lot of different stories from their friends and family. And all of those may not even be closely applicable to their situation. for us to do the job that we do as women and all the things that we have to take care of in our lives, we want to be able to put our best foot forward, and this is one way of doing it.
With FDA-approved hormonal treatments becoming increasingly available and popular, women's healthcare is taking a big step towards a happier and healthier future. For WGCU News, I'm Kate Cronin.
In addition to relieving menopausal symptoms, menopausal hormone therapy has been associated with reducing the risk of heart attack, cognitive decline, and Alzheimer's disease. In 1926, an acknowledgement of Black culture began, which would morph into what we know today as Black History Month. As part of a centennial celebration, the Lee County Black Historical Society hosted its annual gathering with the hope of connecting generations and inspiring pride. WGCU's Bryant Monte has more.
We're here at the Doubletree Hotel in Fort Myers, and this is where the Lee County Black History Society celebrated their 25th annual prayer breakfast, all in celebration of Black History Month here in Southwest Florida. More than 250 people packed the banquet hall of the Doubletree in Fort Myers to commemorate the 100th anniversary of honoring Black achievement and excellence nationally, first established by Dr. Carter G. Woodson.
Right now, God, I give you praise, I give you glory. Continue to look on our city of Fort Myers, our community in Dunbar.
The gathering also celebrated the Lee County Black History Society's 25th annual prayer breakfast. Here's a keynote speaker, Fort Myers Fire Chief Tracy McMillian.
I believe when we celebrate Black history, we're giving our testimonies of what we've been through, what we've overcome, and those positive achievements that we have done through Black excellence.
Yeah.
A tribute from a younger generation known as Legacy in Motion performed a special skit highlighting the history of the past, the Harlem Renaissance period. And along with the recognition and awards, there were the Firecats, a Pop Warner football team who won the national championship last football season. Fort Myers native Tasha Battle talked about the importance of Black History Month and what it means to her.
Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep fighting and keep believing in what you believe in and go from the roots and the things that we were taught.
Black history is American history, so people should appreciate that. If they want to make sure that we appreciate that we are all Americans, then we should be treated as Americans and not disparaged in such negative way. Because if we all work together, we can all do better together.
I thought it was amazing and I had a great time.
And her brother Elias, who shared some of the words of Marcus Garvey when he also performed on stage.
I am Marcus Garvey. This was a thought with a powerful, colorful Black squad. We spoke of African heritage and self-reliance.
Charles Barnes is the board chairman of the Lee County Black History Society.
One of the things that the speaker spoke about, what I thought was wonderful, was that he connected that history with, in spite of what we went through as a people, we accomplished great things.
Janice Cass, founder of the society, reflects on how far the organization has come and the need to keep growing.
When I think about where we came from and how we started with a handful of people, I am really pleased that the community is supporting us, that there are larger groups of people who come out on an annual basis to help us celebrate and commemorate Black History Month and to do the work that we need to do within our community. And in the current climate that we live in, with laws that are being made to suppress and restrict any recognition or emphasis on Black achievements and accomplishments, it is even more important than ever that we continue what we're doing.
A celebration of a legacy of history, achievement, and the importance of community coming together to make a difference for generations to come. For WGCU News, I'm Bryant Monte.
After the break, the origins of Fort Myers, a look back at the Civil War conflict that laid the groundwork for the future of Southwest Florida. This week marks 161 years since the southernmost land battle of the American Civil War took place right here in Southwest Florida. On February 20th of 1865, the Battle of Fort Myers saw a small batch of Union soldiers defend their base from encroaching Confederates. WGCU's Mike Walter shares the story as part of our Florida and America 250 series.
The library on Sanibel Island is about as far removed as you can imagine from the battlefields of the 1860s. Dwayne Schaefer is the library program director and happens to be an authority on the southernmost battle of the Civil War.
It was significant in that I feel that it was really the birth of Fort Myers proper.
The IMAG History and Science Museum offers a virtual reality experience of early Fort Myers. So let's step inside to see life as it was in 1865. The fort was on the Caloosahatchee River and had officers' quarters with tents and barracks for enlisted soldiers. There was a general store and, most importantly, a pier and large wharf to load cattle onto boats. North and South finally fought here because
the Battle of Fort Myers was fought over cows.
Florida had cattle, lots of them, and Confederates were sending the beef north to units still fighting in Virginia. That is, until Union troops from Fort Myers started raiding nearby farms. Union soldiers loaded the stolen cattle onto ships at the dock and sent the beef to Northern troops. This cattle rustling upset the Southern commanders.
It came to the point where they couldn't take it anymore with the Union disrupting the cattle trade. So they sent a force of about 100, 200 guys. They marshaled around present-day LaBelle.
The Confederates called themselves the Cattle Guard or Cow Cavalry. They marched to around here, Billy's Creek, on the morning of February 20th, 1865. They encountered some pickets or guards and took them prisoner. Then they ran into another soldier, a black man, possibly a former slave, who had joined the Union Army. A gunfight followed. The soldier was killed. Nobody has found a definite record of his name. A big cannon was aimed at the fort, and Confederates demanded surrender. The Union commander refused. The fort had at least 2 cannons, and they blasted Confederate lines. Records document a 6 to 8 hour battle. The Cow Cavalry talked about rushing the fort, but then decided it would be wiser to just leave.
As the Confederates retreated back up to present-day LaBelle, a Union cavalry patrol followed them, and they found a lot of bandages, splints, stretchers, so they figured that the Confederates got hurt pretty badly.
Dwayne Schaefer says his ancestors from Maryland fought for both North and South, and some disappeared, almost certainly among the dead. He wrote a book about New Hampshire's role in the war, and he believes the Battle of Fort Myers has meaning.
I would just say the strength and resilience of the Union troops. They didn't surrender. They didn't give in to the Confederates.
Weeks after the battle, Union troops abandoned Fort Myers. The war ended with Confederate General Robert E. Lee's surrender in early April 1865. Why then should we know or care about this now?
If it's not remembered, if it's not, the veterans are not honored, all of those things are lost in the mists of time, and we lose track with that. To study the battles of the past, it's to understand the future and what could happen.
The battle had effects right after the war. Wood from the barracks and other buildings was used to construct the first post-war homes. In 1887, when it came time to incorporate a county in the Fort Myers area, supporters of the South, once again American citizens, made sure to name it after Robert E. Lee. More recently, the city put up a statue honoring black soldiers who fought here and defended the fort. The faces of some of them remain on one side of the federal courthouse in Fort Myers. With photographer Andrea Melendez for America 250 and WGCU News, I'm Mike Walter.
WGCU's Florida 250 reports are sponsored in part by the state of Florida through the Division of Arts and Culture. Next week, we learn about the program that helps low-income individuals get through all the changes for this year's tax season. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you head to WGCU.org, where you will find all of our stories, plus those extended interviews. Have a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again next week, right here on Southwest Florida in Focus.